Down in the shadows where the courthouse stands, a gavel cracks a fading hands. Judge Gull, they whisper with a crooked grin, played the game where justice don't win. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Prosecutor Mickelin with his papers tight wrote the tale that never saw light. Twisted words in a room of stone, left Rick Allen to stand alone. Who will answer? Who will pay? The sun don't rise on a judgment day. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Officer Holman, eyes like frost, drunk on power, the line got lost. Lock the doors, keep him inside, for justice limps where his footsteps stride.
Hello, folks. Forgetting to close that door. You don't need to see inside my bathroom. Hello, folks. Oh, microphone. It's Sunday, usually my day off, but this week, Saturday was my day off because I was slightly hungover after a very, very successful fundraiser for the Timms family. And thank you who were there. Thank you all for joining in on that. For you who don't know, the Timms family only almost got their child stolen by a hospital and the district attorney in Georgia. The trial was some time ago, but the video got released quite recently. So on Megan Fox's channel, we are going through that trial. But even though the Timms were acquitted for the alleged abuse, because there was never abuse, poor baby Timms has a rare genetic disorder that makes his bones brittle. And yeah, you can watch all of that over at Megan Fox channel. But everybody who joined in on that fundraiser on Friday, thank you. Thank you. So that's why I didn't stream yesterday, and instead I am streaming today. And we are going to read Brian Harshman, Master Trooper Brian Harshman's testimony from the July 31st of 2024. When I was looking for a picture of the bastard, I came across an article that I somehow missed. This one. And this one is kind of pissing me off. Okay, from April. Indiana State Police proudly recognizes Master Trooper Brian Harshman for his extraordinary commitment and sustained effort throughout the investigation into the 2017 Delphi homicides. For his valuable contribution, he's been awarded a certificate for exceptional, meritorious service. And this, for me, is how they pat themselves on the back and also preemptively undermining Rick Allen's appeal. Because what they are doing here with Brian Harshman is the entire justice system in Indiana is getting behind this, in my opinion, and many others, wrongful conviction. Claiming, oh, you did so good work. Oh, you did so good work. Pat yourself on the back. It's horrifyingly bad police work. Horrifyingly. But the Indiana State Police, in their effort to keep justice from Abby and Libby, they decided to reward this asshole. And this is nothing new, because not that long ago, we had something else. We had this. Indiana State Police Lieutenant wins Crime Fighter of the Year award for work in Delphi case. And that's Jerry Holman. For those who don't know about Jerry Holman, I hope you do. Jerry Holman is, in my opinion, a medical moron, a medical imbecile, who, for some odd reason, managed to get through life, got a position within the police force in Indiana, who completely botched the interview with Rick Allen, who conveniently forgot that he himself was the person who received Rick Allen calling in back in 2017, and probably was the reason Rick Allen was removed from the investigation to begin with. But he conveniently forgot about this because he's an imbecile. But this is from CrimeCon, which puts the... it's a con. It's an absolute con. These people behind CrimeCon are... well, I don't know why they do what they do. But from people that have visited the last few years, it's a clusterfuck. It's a complete clusterfuck of idiots congratulating idiots and people who just get there. Now, apparently CrimeCon has their entrance fee is, $400. So more or less the only people who the general public can barely afford. So police departments send their people there so they can pat each other on the back, and the occasional lawyer who can afford to be there. But seriously. But this is, in my opinion, police not only refusing to take accountability for their mistakes, but they actively tells the rest of the police departments, in this case the Indiana State Police, nobody ever questioned what we did in the Delphi case. And by extension, the Flora 4 case. Nobody dare question our incompetence. But because by giving themselves these awards, they are undermining justice. Because, folks, even the appeal is, I believe it should be into the appeals court on October 21st, was the last I heard, unless there's a new extension. Say that a proper court goes through this trial and everything, how Judge Gull denied third-party culprit defense, kept him under the safekeeping order, and everything. I mean, there's so many reversible errors in that trial that a proper court should reverse the decision and grant a new trial. Hopefully a new trial without Judge Gull. That's one of the reasons why I hope the appeals court takes time. Not because I want Rick Allen in jail or in prison, but for every year there's a possibility that Judge Gull might retire, resign, or I'm not hoping for people to die, but as a wise man said 100 years ago, I will read some obituaries with a smile on my face. So I wanted to bring these things up, that they are rewarding themselves. Oh, look at what good we did in the Delphi case. While, I mean, everybody outside of the police force and outside of crime cons, the idiots who runs crime con, very, very few people believe Rick Allen did this. Very, very few. And I also want to bring up another thing that it happened first time maybe a year and a half ago. Some anonymous new YouTube account commenting under one of my Delphi streams or videos about, Rick Allen was known for following girls around. No. That never happened, folks. Never happened. Folks, imagine this. It's 2017, February, March, April. Don't you think if parents who claim, parents saying, hey, Rick is following kids around, don't you think that would have been in the tip line? It would have. You know what? It's not there because it never happened. Then it happened again maybe 6 months ago. Almost the exact same. And it happened a few days ago. Somebody commenting with almost the exact same story. Oh, you have to convince me Rick Allen is innocent. My daughters were followed around DMC by Rick Allen. It's lies. I don't know who the person is who does this. Now, I have saved but the comment is hidden, but I keep it because sooner or later these anonymous YouTube accounts with 0 followers, with 0 everything, they will make mistakes, or that person will make a mistake, and I will find out eventually. I will find out who you are, and I will expose you for the liar you are. Oh, okay. That was my rant about those things. Now, let's get into the reading of Trooper Harshman's testimony, because last stream the defense rested in their in the hearing, and it's the state's case. So now it is. I put myself up here. Now it is the state, and question by misdemeanor is Brian Harshman. So let's go. And folks, hit the thumbs up, please. Do all the YouTube things. Be active in the chat, because my month in the United States, I fell out of the YouTube algo. So please help me push through that so my stuff gets out there as it used to be. Thank you. Question by Miss Diener. Please state your full name and where you're employed. My name is Brian Harshman and I'm employed with the Indiana State Police. Was it your rank or position? I'm a detective with the Indiana State Police. Yeah, by the way, he got a promotion. He is now Master Trooper Brian Harshman. How long have you been employed? December 4th of this year, it will be 30 years. 30 years of botching investigations. And how many of those years have you spent as a detective? Approximately 17. During that time, have you investigated homicides? I've assisted in the investigation of homicides. And how did you become involved in this particular case? In early 2020, I was assigned by the United States Marshals Great Lakes Southern Regional Fugitive Task Force. That's a mouthful. Which offered me opportunities to sort of pick and choose some of the things that I wanted to do. We looked for fugitives. But during that period of time, I had been talking to then First Sergeant Holman. Oh, for fuck's sake, of course you did. And I told him several times, hey, going on quite a while here. I'm sure you guys are burning the candle at both ends. I'm available if you could use any help. And he put me off for a few months. And then I asked him again, sometime around maybe March 2020, and he agreed. And I kind of stepped in and started helping with the investigation at that point. So it's a case of blind leading the blind. Moron helping imbecile. Now, once Mr. Allen was arrested and charged, did your role change? It did. And what did it change to? Once he was arrested and detained, I began to monitor his communications from the facilities where he was housed, sort of inadvertently appointed myself, I guess, the caretaker of the phone calls and some of the video footage, things that we were receiving from the Department of Corrections. When I talked to now Lieutenant Holman about it, it seemed like a smart thing to do, to have one person concentrating on that, just due to the volume of the work that was involved in keeping up with everything. So instead of having a person who is not friends with the lead investigator in the case, instead of having somebody there with no connections to the case or the people involved, hey, do me a favor, friend. I'll make sure to find the things you are looking for, friend. In a law enforcement experience, is it not uncommon or maybe even routine to monitor calls using something like GTL that are being made by an offender while incarcerated? Well, that's true. Yes, I've used that numerous times during the course of my career. And so you were familiar with that process in regard to Mr. Allen at DOC, is that correct? Correct. How do you access the calls? Just to inform the court, how do you go about doing that? When Mr. Allen makes a call from the facility, I'm noticed via a text message that a call's been made, and it basically tells me what time and who and it shows me a number that the call was made to. At that point, then I can get on the website through GTL and I can pull the call. Excuse me. I can pull the call up and then I can listen to the call, the content of the call. When you began this task, did you start at the beginning and have you made it to current date, or where do you stand on that? I'm currently completely up to date on all phone calls that have been made by Richard Allen. And when Mr. Allen makes a phone call, are you documenting relevant information? Documenting relevant information. Yes, I keep, and creating a report. I keep notes, and then the calls that I believe may contain pertinent information. So you select what fits your narrative. I notify Holman and Mullin. Mullin is another person who can go fuck himself. And Mullin will generally send that call to a stenographer or to get it a transcript written, and I'll usually put that in the state police case report system. It involves so much time that there is a backlog on those, but I do know that, once they're transcribed, the investigator, Mullin, has a copy of the actual transcription too. So would you agree that's one of the items of ongoing discovery that accumulates because the calls are being monitored, and if there's something significant, there's a record being created and you then document it? Yes, it never ends. It goes every day. It continues on. So have you also been, you said you were reviewing video that's recorded within the DOC. Can you be specific as to what video? Because we all know that there's in-cell camera video and then there's also movement video. The video that I've reviewed is the movement video that the Department of Corrections utilizes when moving Mr. Allen from one place to another. Just recently, and I'm not completely finished with all of them, but just recently I received, I believe, the bulk of the video provided by DOC reference the medical specific transports. And then I do have the in-cell video, access to that too, which I believe I'm current on, but there's just so much of it. I'm not completely positive, but I believe I'm current on it. Okay. And we're here about a motion to suppress Mr. Allen's statements while made in DOC based on his environment coercing those statements. So you've been notified of that, correct? Correct. And you've been watching these videos and listening to these calls, so you're hearing in phone calls Mr. Allen's perspective on his circumstances, are you not? Correct. And then you can also watch the video of how he's being moved around the facility and how he's being treated by the staff that appear in that video. Is that right? Correct. Now, we've been advised that when he's moved, there's at least 2 people moving him and 1 person recording. Or there are oftentimes other people present that are part of staff. I would say that as far as your statement about a minimum of, I don't believe I've ever seen any less than that. There are times I believe there are more. There have been times when Mr. Allen has been maybe less cooperative than other times. So I think they had extra people in the area on for that, but I'm not positive. When I refer to staff, I mean to including nursing staff, medical staff, those should probably go together. But let me say Dr. Martin, maybe Dr. Walla, the Satan's whore, Dr. Walla. And so were you able to observe times where he makes incriminating statements in the presence of more than just a medical provider? Yes. And then there are instances where it is a medical visit, correct? Correct. Has your observation of how he's treated by the staff that moves him indicated to you that there has been any sort of change from beginning to now? So I would say in Westville, we're talking about from December of 22 to December of 23. When he was at Westville Correctional Facility, was the staff treating him with respect and were they patient with him? Let's all guess if let's guess if he has criticism. I would say no. Yes, the professionalism shown by the DOC is almost over the top. More so than I've ever seen in a custodial facility, frankly. Really? Mr. Harshman? I believe that due to the nature of Mr. Allen, whether people were told or they just assume, I think that everybody knows that due care and professionalism, and also, these officers are not stupid. They're being videotaped the whole time. They got a camera in their face, so they know. But yes, the patience and the professionalism from the DOC is sometimes unbelievable, given the circumstances that they deal with. Mr. Harshman, isn't it hard to testify with the with McLeland's cock in your mouth? Isn't it really, really hard while on your knees, cock gobbling, to say words? You absolute tool. Even when he's in a state of being covered in feces and it's a shower and they're taking care of that in a respectful way to the extent that they can under the circumstances. Correct. Okay, so there's this period of time where confessions are being made. You've been reviewing some of those, correct? Correct. So if they are a phone call to his wife or his mother, have you reviewed those? Correct. Did you also, Mr. Harshman, did you also reviewed when he claimed to have killed his non-existing grandchildren, where he started World War III? Did you develop an opinion of the development over time from maybe and then during an active psychosis making claims, who we now know has no foundation? There was never a box cutter. The white van was not there when the prosecution claimed it was. We know none of Mr. Allen's so-called confessions. We now know they do not fit the crime scene. But you don't care, do you? If they are doing a movement within the jail while it's being recorded by what they would call transport staff, have you observed those? Yes. And some of those actually involve movement to a medical visit. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Okay, is there any other category of observation you've been able to make with regard to confession statements? No? I believe just the telephone calls, the videos, and the movement videos, and then movement videos to the medical, which again, I've seen most of, but I still have a few of those to go through. And then also noted that during this whole process, I've also been involved in what the self-ending companion door cheats, the notes that were written there. Oh, really? How did you get them, but not the defense? Hi, Gigi. Hi, Gigi. Hi, unindicted co-conspirator. Hi, Jennifer and Katz. Ida B. Miss Rattle. Jen Kestrel. Hello, everybody. Again, please be active in chat. Hit the thumbs up. I need to break into the YouTube algo. And the only people who can help me with that is you. So please help me with that. So I would get with Investigator Mullin or Holman, and I would notify them, or they would notify me if they saw on the door sheet something that looked pertinent, that was documented by either an inmate, COM, a self-ending companion, or an officer. So you don't have... Here's the thing with inside Rick's cell. There was only video. And then there were the notes. But we don't actually hear what he actually said. Some or most of it might actually be made up by people who let's help the investigation. Then I did follow up and conduct numerous interviews with Department of DOC officers, reference their the statements that they recorded on those door sheets. And then you prepare those reports on those as well, and those would be part of discovery. That's correct. Reports were created and the interviews were also recorded. Transcribed or? Yes, I know. Not sure. I know that most of them are. I hate to say they all were so far, okay? But I believe so, yes. So if then, in reviewing this volume of information from a perspective of phone calls and videos and self-ending companion cheats, did you observe any external factors that introduced themselves in April that coincided with Mr. Allen starting to confess? Oh. One of the things that I was able to note, and you got to keep kind of keep in mind, to date, I'm somewhere between 650 and 670 total phone calls made by Richard Allen while he's been detained. Breaking that down into hours, we're somewhere in the 150 to 170 hours of just phone calls, not including any video or anything else that I watched. So the volume of calls is immense. So I feel I've been able to pattern his conversations. Pattern? And what's going on in his world just by the simple fact of the amount of time I spent listening to the conversations. And one of the things that I noted was early in March, Mr. Allen began to become involved in reading a Bible. And as such, he proclaimed numerous times that on March 21st, 2023, he found Jesus Christ and he found God. Some of that statement was followed up by some calls where Mr. Allen clearly believes that. He made statement that, he may very likely not be with his family again in this lifetime. He was concerned, and what he wanted to make sure is that when they were in heaven together, that when they went to heaven, he could go to heaven too. It was interesting because that change of his demeanor really began to coincide with just several days later the confession starting. Also coinciding with an active fucking psychosis, you retard. And the original so-called confessions was after 5 fucking months of people screaming at him, people coercing him, Dr. Walla coercing him. He finally broke. And in an active psychosis, he started with maybe, I might as well, stuff like that. It wasn't really, it was never detailed. And the details that we know, such as box cutter, and which probably is completely made up, and the white van, which we know is completely false, there were no actual details that could be pointed to the crime scene and, yeah, that's what happened. His confessions, so-called confessions, at best or worst, depending on how you see it, never included the F tree. Never included how did he move them. Never included what route did you actually take. None of the important details that are seen in the crime scene is ever in Rick Allen's confessions. They were in other people's confessions, but not in Rick Allen's. And would he himself relate to the confessions to his finding God and being concerned about his future beyond this world, heaven and hell? Yes, and he would have those conversations with Mrs. Allen and his mother. They all seem to be very religious people, and, they had conversation, and he had extensive conversations about, if things don't go his way, then he wants to try to make sure, and oftentimes he says he's not even sure with what he's done. And the fact that he's found God is going to be enough to get him into heaven. So you admit here, what you call it confessions is him actually breaking down after months and months of coercion from staff, from other inmates, from Dr. Walla. He is slowly but surely breaking down. Remember, folks, Rick Allen, they use a 5-grade scale of mental illness in the intake, A to E. At intake, he was the second worst. And then he got worse. Had it not been for the order, the protection order, whatever you call it, he would have been immediately when he started to deteriorate, he would immediately have been sent off to a facility that could handle that. But they had the safekeeping order, which prevented Rick Allen from getting proper treatment. It all boils down to that fucking safekeeping order that Judge Diener, you coward asshole, did on an ex parte meeting with only the prosecution and an investigator. Rick Allen wasn't there. His then attorney wasn't there. It was an which should make everything about that hearing illegal and everything subsequent to that thrown out as fruit of the poisonous tree. Let's see what the appeals court will say. When you say he's not sure what he's done, what do you mean by that? Well, and that's sort of what he alludes to. He doesn't really go any further than that. He just talks about, I think he mentioned sins, the sins that he's committed, okay? But nothing specific as to a particular sin when he was talking about that. But does he talk about the crimes he's charged with in this case? Yes, yes. And does he talk about with them with specificity? Yes, he has confessed and he has talked about these crimes very specifically. You lying sack of shit. You're lying. You lying sack of shit, Harshman. Are we talking about one time or multiple times? I try to find a way to put it in numerical sense, because there are varying degrees of what I believe is, there's some confessions where it's just, I did this, this, and this. And there are some where you sort of dance around the outside of it, but just direct confessions that I've been able to find, telephone calls, the videos, the door tweets. I'm 60 plus confessions at this point. You're lying, Harshman. You're lying. In your 60 plus, the 61 confessions, you are including the I might have, I might as well have in all of that. You're lying sack of shit. And that's a conservative number without a doubt. Okay, and in the ones that are more specific, does Mr. Allen include details that only a person involved in the crime would potentially know? I believe that's correct, yes. Liar. Again, up until Mr. Allen, in one of these alleged confessions, talks about box cutters, not what the medical examiner in this case, whatever name the fuckface has, had never, not even an inkling about his claim was 2 different knives. One serrated, one not. But mysteriously, a short while after this so-called confession of Rick Allen, where he mentions box cutter, the medical examiner changes his mind. He has a eureka moment. Oh, it must have been, yeah, sure, you cunt. You changed your mind because you were told to change your mind. Hey, Sloothy is here. Sloothy. Hey. Good to have you here. Welcome to the show, everybody. There will be cursing. And does he ever talk about an obligation as a Christian to be honest and make things right? I don't recall that exact phrasing, so I'd be hesitant to say. I'm not sure. Okay, does he? How is his confessions to his family received in these calls? Generally, the first confessions were obviously Mrs. Allen and the mom was extremely upset. rightfully so. I mean, it's difficult to listen to. His conversation with them about it because, that's their husband, their son. Clearly, it's an extremely difficult time for them. As the confessions went on, Richard's mother would say, they're messing with you, they're messing with your mind. Yeah, because she knows her kid. Kathy knows her husband. They know you are messing with his mind, and you've been doing it for months. Kathy would kind of reiterate the same thing. Oftentimes, Kathy would tell him to stop talking. There were at least once, Mr. Allen was talking, and she said, stop talking, and something along the lines, I'm going to call Brad, and the call ended. So I don't know whether it ended on her end or his or Mr. Allen's end. So initially, disbelief, shock, I would say, upset. Why are you testifying about state of mind? And then as some of the confessions kind of went over a period of time, it became sort of changed the subject. Stop talking about it. We're not talking about this, You don't know what you're saying. They're messing with your mind. That was the kind of direction it went after that. Do some of the statements actually include motivations for the crime? Yes. And do some of his statements relate to why he would have delayed in confessing? Yes. And did some of those relate to how his family might react to the reality that he committed the crimes? That's correct. Is there a period of time where he does not communicate with his family, either by their choice or his, as a result of him confessing? Oh, yeah. Sorry. There's no June 31st. Sorry. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Thank you. You're absolutely correct. Why doesn't that show up in here on my... There's something... Okay, StreamYard does not really show all the chats. I hate StreamYard. Yeah. Folks, I will probably go over more permanently to other options than StreamYard, because StreamYard is expensive as fuck and completely worthless. I'm using it because I'm used to it. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, there have been some periods of time where, for various reasons, he's gone on an extended period, at least by his standards, of not communicating with the family. Might that period of time has been when he was force-fed Haldol and other medications, possibly having him into Haldol poisoning to the degree that his eyes bulged out of his head, but you don't take that into account? You fucking assholes. You evil fucking assholes. And I think at one point his tablet broke, or he broke his tablet, so he had to wait to get another one. I think that he maybe had lost his communication privileges for a while for some incident that happened at the department. I don't know what that would have been. But other than that, he's pretty consistent in calling. But it was a 3-day hearing starting June 30, I believe. July. Yes, July. Oh, June. I wrote June, not July. Thank you for reminding me. Is it correct that he has a concern over whether his family will still love him if he committed these crimes? Yeah, I would say that probably the biggest common concern that I hear is over and over again, no matter how this ends up, will you still love me? Will you still be there? Extremely concerned about what happens as a result of this trial. You indicated recently that you reviewed or found a statement that you thought related to him having a conversation with Kathy about how this is impacting her and that he would contact the police to make a statement. Can you, share that with the court? In November I think it might have been second week of November in 2022, and this is early on in his incarceration. Or his detention. This is just weeks, probably. He makes the statement to Kathy that if this becomes too much for you, just let me know. I'll talk to the detectives and tell them everything they want to know. A person with a normal functioning brain, do you know what they would have thought about this? They would have thought, Jesus Christ, we can trust what Rick Allen says because he's trying to protect his family. So he will make false confessions. That is what a person with a normal functioning brain. He is trying to protect his family. That is what this means. If this becomes too much for you, just let me know. I'll talk to the detectives and tell them everything they want to know. The meaning of this is, in my opinion, undisputable. The longer he is incarcerated, the bigger the chance of false confession. Once he experiences his family not wanting to talk to him, is it sometime after that, or not wanting to talk to him after he is confessed? Does he then cease or reduce the amount of statement that he's making about confessing to the crime? Yes, I would say probably the bulk of confession started in early April, when he was full on psychotic, in a psychotic break. And probably continued on until through June, maybe into July, and after that, they really started to slow down as far as I would consider the direct confessions. Know what else happened during this point in time? The Haldol. Haldol poisoning and Haldol treatment. A full-on psychotic break and Haldol treatment. And I know I've said this before, but let me repeat it. Haldol was the Soviet Union's favorite mind-altering drug. If they wanted their political prisoners to confess to things they never did, they pumped them with Haldol and questioned them until they got the statements they wanted. There was always, we even still after that, we still have the conversation about, will you love me, no matter what happens, no matter, there was a period of time he was extremely concerned about what the family was going to see during the trial. He was concerned about, the things that were going to be said about him. And he was really concerned about the photos that they were going to see of what he was accused of. In fact, he indicated that he didn't want them to see what he had done. Is that correct? That's correct. He indicated, ma'am, Miss Diener, that is your interpretation because that's your case. And then he gets moved to Wabash Valley. And does he make any statement while at Wabash Valley that would be considered confessions? In February of this year, he made a statement that was documented by a Department of Corrections guard. I don't have the report with me, but it was somewhere along the lines of he was talking to himself, and he apologized for maybe killing Abby. I think I would. To feel comfortable, I want to review my report to make sure that's the correct, but that's the gist of it. I don't think that ever happened. To my recollections, there is nothing from at least the reporting from the trial, that statement from February was ever mentioned. At least not in these terms. Okay, would you recall a statement that he made to his mother in January of this year in a recorded phone call that he wanted to tell the truth and be honest and just didn't want to hurt his family? I've heard those calls. As far as the timeline, if you're telling me January, then I believe you, but I'm not completely sure on the timeline. But yeah, I heard calls to that nature. He has said those things in phone calls. Yes. But he wanted to tell the truth and be honest and just didn't want to. Yeah, but on which context? Which context? Okay, in your survey of all this information that you described and in your interviews with officer companions that were logging his activities at Westville, did you ever learn any information that led you to believe that he was being coerced or induced to make incriminating statements? I did not. No, you're lying. One of the things that I really checked on during the interviews was, if the behavior between the DOC personnel and Mr. Allen, and then also if DOC personnel witnessed any other personnel having adverse interaction with Mr. Allen, and by far the overwhelming consensus between the guards, shockingly, is they felt he was treated way better than Mr. Rossi. I'm going to object at this point to speculation, and when he's testifying in bulk about what a bunch of guards are thinking and feeling, I think it's a little bit beyond the evidentiary, what the evidentiary rules permit, which is something that has some indicia of reliability in a case like this. It's hearsay. Mr. Inner Judge, the officer who are relaying their impressions to this officer while he's interviewing them and are giving his statements based on their direct observations of Mr. Allen, I think it should be admitted. Overruled. So, nobody's surprised. Nobody is surprised. And again, who is shocked that the guards say we did nothing wrong? Yeah, Sleuths say, where are those calls? Where's the fucking receipts? Yeah. Where's the receipts? There's a reference to Mr. Allen feeling tortured. With regard to the defense motion and memorandum, has there been a reference to that in the materials that you reviewed? Yes, Mr. Allen does state a lot that he feels like he's being mentally tortured and that he's being pressed by family. Are they hurting you? Are they making you? This asshole is blaming the family for asking questions. And he, as far as physical torture, he always says no. He believes that psychological mental torture is what they're doing, and he equates that to functions like it's loud in the prison at night and it keeps him awake. The lights are always on and it bothers him. And folks. If this, what happened to Rick Allen, happened to a prisoner of war, that would be a war crime. Depriving sleep, 24/7 lights on, are considered torture. A war crime. But not in Indiana prisons. And it correlates a lot of those activities with being a torture tactic that the DOC is using to mentally and psychologically affect him. Not him specifically, they do it to everyone in his situation. And so let's go back to what Mr. Rossi had objected to. You were going to share with the court the impressions of the guard with regard to Mr. Allen. Do you recall your statements you were going to make about what they had relayed to you? I do. Okay, could you please share that? Yes, the guard shared with me that they believe that Mr. Allen was receiving treatment that was above and beyond what the normal inmates at the facilities were receiving day in and day out. To nobody's fucking surprise. To nobody's fucking surprise, the guards protect themselves. And still, Mr. Allen, at this point in time, was not a convicted criminal. I've said this before, say it again. The comparisons should be him and other people awaiting trial, not him and already convicted people. I don't know how to really phrase it other than it created almost between other inmates and Mr. Allen. It creates it was noticeable enough that everybody, like on the range, would know that Mr. Allen was being treated different than the rest of them. Different in a better way, different in a better way, correct. So now he's saying that the inmates claims that Mr. How the fuck would the inmates know that? How the fuck would the inmates know that? Unless the staff was telling the inmates this. And did any of the officers that you interviewed relay their impressions that Mr. Allen was feigning or faking symptoms of psychosis to portray himself as crazy? Yeah, I would ask each and every one what they thought of the antics that Mr. Allen would portray without hesitation. How the flaming fuck would the staff know about this? Or each and every one of them, do they have a degree in psychology? A degree in psychiatrics? No, they don't. And also, they are protecting themselves. Say that they say something different here. Let's imagine they say something different here. That all of a sudden they start saying, yeah, we believe all of these psychoses are real. That happens in their prisons. First of all, if any one of them started saying that, they would be fired. And also, it would incriminate themselves. So this is self-serving testimony by the staff. Self-serving testimony. Because why would they admit that the situation in the prison where they are employed are so bad that inmates are forced into psychotic breaks? So this is self-serving testimony. Judge, I'm going to object. Can I ask a preliminary question? Yes. Mr. Rossi, are you communicating that some offender told you about their impression about Mr. Allen's psychiatric state? No, I was making a statement what a DOC officer told me he believed Mr. Allen was doing. Right, about the way he was acting, whether or not it was a legitimate psychiatric issue or whether he was faking it, right? That's correct. Okay, I object. Again, we're getting a little far afield of the basic, hearsay admissibility rules. These people, these guards, have no qualification to draw a conclusion about psychiatric circumstances, in addition to the fact that it's hearsay. So I think that is beyond that. I'm objecting for that reason. Judge, Ms. Dino says, Judge, I'll rephrase the question to ask if officers relate to him that they felt he was faking when he was acting out during April and May. I think that in a position of corrections officer at a DOC facility, that they would be in a position to give a lay person's opinion about that, what they were observing. The court, well, but not as it relates to psychiatric symptoms. I would sustain the objection of that. Ms. Diener, I'll rephrase the question. Here, Judge Gull would have said, no, you're not rephrasing. Move on. But she allows them to rephrase. Of Detective Harshman, did you ask them questions about Mr. Allen's behavior not being consistent during the period of time that he was confessing? I did. Did they talk about him engaging in behavior described as bizarre? Mr. Rossi, I'm going to object again. I'm not even sure who's even talk about, like who these people are. She's just saying, did they? So they're really not really an indication of who. Ms. Diener, officer companions Who is speaking with that's saying these things? The court, can you narrow it? Ms. Diener, yeah. Were there specific instances where you were interviewing a particular officer companion who documented a confession that coincided with behavior that would be considered bizarre? Yes. And did the officer make any statements to you regarding to having an opinion about whether Mr. Allen was faking? Mr. Rossi, same objection. The court, overruled. It's the same fucking question that she sustained. And now she changes her mind because, as you all know, Judge Gull sacrifices baby lambs to Satan each morning to keep herself alive and in office. Yes, they believed he was faking. Did he fake having eyes bulging out of his eye sockets? Self-serving testimony. Self-serving testimony. Okay, and as you sit here today, you can't tell me specifically which officer told you that, correct? Because you don't have your notes in front of you. Correct. Okay, did more than one officer that was a door companion for Mr. Allen share that observation or opinion? Self-serving testimony. Because if they believe it was real, they have a duty to report. So it's self-serving testimony. I can tell you what I did check, and I interviewed a total of 10 of those officers, and going back to my reports, I was surprised if 8 of the 10 didn't have the same feeling about that. How many of those were the officers who had Odinist patches on their staff uniform? Is one of these people the person who was told you can't have these patches and tattooed Odin's spear on his fucking face? Self-serving testimony. In reviewing the documents that you described, the door cheats, the phone calls, the video of movement, did you ever find evidence that someone was interrogating Mr. Allen? Not once. Another question. Mr. Rossi, cross-examination. Oh, please make this good. Question. Were you able to watch some of the videos of the inmate companions sitting at his door side? The videos that I had access to did not have any inmate companions in them. To nobody's fucking surprise, those disappeared. They were the videos that were used by the personnel during movements. Now, if there was a companion caught in the frame when they were moving him, I would see a companion. I did not have like a hallway view. I had a cell view, and then those views of the moment. So you have no idea what the conversations were between the inmate companions and Mr. Allen, do you? No, that's correct. So from the very beginning when Mr. Allen was incarcerated, there was a plan to place to monitor his communications at the prison, right? Yeah. And the plan involved getting in touch with GTL and getting access to those phone calls, right? Correct. And making arrangements with the DOC to obtain video, in-cell video of Mr. Allen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? That was outside of my lane. That wasn't my responsibility, but I did receive those after the fact, yes. That was part of your job. That was part of your job, was to review all that as well. Yes, but I was not part of the making contact with the DOC and requesting that, so no. Okay, so some other officer were doing that, but you were getting the product. That would be fair. Okay, and also that also involved you getting access to his phone calls from the rec phone. It's my understanding that any call that utilizes his doc PIN number, other than to his legal team or attorneys, is recorded on the GTL. That's my understanding. If it's different than that, I don't know. Okay, and do they have a phone that they used to bring on the block, or was it like a mobile phone that they would use every couple of times a week? That who would use? The inmates. Regular inmates, I don't know what they utilize. Mr. Allen had a tablet that, best I can tell. As long as it's charged, he can make calls anytime he wants to. And you had access to those too. Those were also recorded on the GTL. What about his digital communications through the tablet? The text messages? Yeah, I have access to those also. Okay, so there is no privacy afforded to him in any respect when he was in that cell in terms of his communications with the outside world, was there? And when he makes the call out, he's notified of that. Everything is monitored and recorded before he makes the call. And even the folks that Miss Allen and his mother are also notified of the recording that, hey, you're receiving a call from correctional facility from, let's say it's Ricky, and it says these calls are subject to monitoring and recording, and then the call's connected. Do you agree with me that there's no privacy afforded to him with regard to any of those calls because you knew everything he was saying basically the minute he said it, correct? I do not monitor in real time. It would have been after the call's completed. Okay, then I get notified. But no privacy was there. That's fair. Okay, and in fact, that would be the only way for Rick Allen to talk to his family about the circumstances surrounding his case, wouldn't it? Or through the attorneys. Well, but to talk to them directly about this case, he'd have to do it on the phone, right? That's correct. The most important thing in his life, right? He's incarcerated, facing accusations like these, right? Yeah, he did talk about the case to his family, and he's not even able to do that without the police listening to that, is he? No. So there was a pretty involved process to make sure that all his information funneled to you pretty quickly, wasn't there? I don't think quickly would be a fair statement because nothing seems to funnel to me quickly, but yes, I do receive the information. Well, you just said a little while ago you were getting the text message notices. Well, yes, I do get that. When he made... I'm talking about everything as a whole, videos, etc. So if you're talking about the calls, yes, I'm notified of the calls after he's completed a call. You ever monitored another offender at the DOC like this? Yes, I have over the years, several. Okay. Anybody that's been detained in the DOC awaiting trial for something they haven't been convicted of? No. This is the first time you've ever been in a situation where you were surveilling someone in Rick Allen's circumstances. The only difference is because of the DOC. I mean, the county jails, yes, I monitor a county jail. Somebody who's waiting, all right, awaiting trial. And you never dealt with anybody up at the WCU, have you? Inmate-wise? Yeah, in the maximum security unit within Westville. No, not an inmate, no. So when you're watching these videos of him in his cell, you're seeing everything that he's doing, aren't you? Correct. If he goes to the bathroom, you get to watch, don't you? Not exactly what I want to do all day, but yes, I do see it. I understand that. But that's just the reality of the environment he's living in, right? Yes. The DOC officers, from a professionalism standpoint, have been over the top, you said. That's my opinion, yes. Okay. You see the videos of the DOC officers with their Odin patches on their chest? I have not seen any Odin patches on anybody's chest. We know he's lying. We know Harshman is lying. Because those fuckers were among the people who escorted. So if there was video, the patches were seen, and Harshman saw it. So we know he's lying. And did you see the video? Are you aware that there were officers up there with patches on their chest that said, "I hate people"? No, I've not been aware of those patches, no. Liar. Okay, did you see the video of him being transported in to get a haircut where the DOC officer realized that he had something on his chest and he ripped it off his chest, a patch? I remember a couple of times for a haircut, I believe. I do not remember somebody ripping a patch off, no. Selective memory. It's a bitch. Okay, did anybody amongst law enforcement communicate any of that to you? At one point, obviously, there was talk about somebody having patties at some point, again, outside of my lane. So it wasn't anything I was involved in. So I don't. Well, you interviewed a bunch of guards, right? Yes. And as far as I know, none of them were involved in any of the patches. Did you ask them? Yes. Okay, and so they all denied it, the ones you interviewed. Yeah, they denied it. Not one of the guards that you interviewed mentioned that they had anything to do with these patches or the Odinism associated with that. Correct. None of them mentioned it. Self-serving testimony. You think there's anything unusual about an inmate that's in confinement turning to God as a way to deal with the circumstances of that confinement? No, I would imagine that the stresses associated with that confinement would lead people probably to try to, find God. Well, one of the things that Rick had in his cell was a Bible, right? I would say that's fair. I think he got some magazine and some other stuff, but yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of stuff in his cell. And then, when they put him on close supervision, they even take his blanket from him, don't they? I would say there's a reason for that. Yeah, the answer is yes, right? The answer is yes, they take his blanket. So they strip him down to bare essentials, right? That's outside my lane. That's how, those are decisions that I don't make, but yes, he would have less stuff in his cell, I guess. Yeah. Right. Which you would be seeing on the video that there's really nothing in there. No, there's not a lot in there. Yeah. And he also, for long periods of time, had to wear a kimono, didn't he? They call it a self-ending smock, but yes, I did see those. You acknowledge that he said things to officers and companions about this offense that are inconsistent with what happened at the crime scene. I did not say that I don't believe. Okay. You ever hear him say that he shot the two girls? That he shot them? Yeah, in the back. I don't know that I heard him say it. I don't understand. I understand what your... Okay, volume 5 is done. Volume 6. Talking about, and I don't know. I don't think that's somebody that I heard him say. I don't know if that came out of an interview from somebody or not. I would have to check and see. That I just don't know. Sounds like something you heard during the course of the investigation, right? I heard that somewhere, and that he molested them, right? That I don't know, sorry. Do you agree that a lot of the things that he said occurred, almost all of them, within that, I think you said April, and you said maybe into early July, right? The abundance, yes? And the majority of those statements are what I would consider, I'm going to use the phrase generic, where it's just saying, I killed A and L, or I killed those girls, right? Ms. Diener, I object to the form of the question. Mr. Rossi, it's cross-examination. The court overruled. Hey, look at that. She can make correct decisions. Or pretend she can make the correct decisions. Mr. Rossi, thank you. Yes, there are those statements along with others, yes. Did you hear him early on in his period of incarceration from December of or November of 22 through March of 2023 professing his innocence? Yes, he has professed his innocence. And did you hear him doing that again, July, August, September, October, the end of his stay? The end of his stay at Westville? Well, at least the last, let's just say 5-6 months that he was there. It would vary. There will be times there are times where he professes his innocence, and then he followed up with and around the, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not a direct confession, but it'll be, something along the line of an excuse for why he said what he said, so he will go back to it. But yes, I mean, he confessed his guilt and he's tried to confess his innocence. Folks, do you know what happens during Haldol poisoning? What happened in the Soviet Union while the political prisoners were filled with Haldol and making all the false confessions, then they were taking off Haldol. And once the effect wore off, they got right in their mind again. and the claims began. That was false. I never did that. That's how the wrong use of Haldol works. When Dr. Walla and whoever this psychiatrist was pumped him full with Haldol and other medication, then the confessions happened. This is textbook Soviet Union tactics. Get people to confess, write it down, then you stop caring. It's textbook. Text fucking book. What happens? That is why, and also when Miss Diener claimed things only the killer would know, we know all of that is false. No matter how many times they claim the words, he said things only the killer would know, we know it's false. They are lying. Again, the medical examiner's eureka moment with the box cutter happened a short while after Rick somehow mentioned box cutter. The white van, or the van. We know it's false. There's fucking video of it. That when the prosecution claimed everything happened, the van wasn't there. The van wasn't there until at least 10 to 15 minutes later, making it fucking impossible. So no, there's not a single confession so-called confession out of Rick's mouth that can be traced to the crime scene. None. Zero. And what is it accurate to say that one of the contexts in which these confessions come up is him referring back to what he's told prison staff in April, May, and June? Like, does that come up often? That he talks about, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Yeah, like he might say, well, they say I'm confessed. Like he might make a reference like that in a phone call. Is that something you heard fairly routinely? Yeah, but I don't consider that a confession. Right, but he's referencing something. He's referencing these statements that occurred in April, May, and June, right? Correct. And that is part of the discussion, even into the more recent past, right? Phone calls. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I got so he's saying those. He said those things more recently in phone calls, right? Yes. Even since he's been at Wabash Valley. He's that he goes back and talks about the time he made the confessions, right? Right. He's making reference about the past and using the word confessed or confession, right? Well, he'll say, well, they say I confessed. If I confessed, then convict me and send me to jail so we can get this over with. He'll attribute things like that. He'll say, if I confessed, then whatever. They say I confessed, whatever. Okay, so that's kind of, he reverts back, I guess, if that answers your question. Thank you. November of 2022, you told me, Stino, that he was suggesting to, I think it was Kathy, that if they want me to just do an interview with the police, I'll do that. Yeah, he was fine with that, right? Yes, he made the statement, if this gets to be too much, go to the investigators and tell them, I'll talk to them, and I'll tell them everything they want to know. Okay, and that was it. Kind of taking a chivalrous approach with his wife to this. He was taking a chivalrous approach to his wife with this situation, right? I mean, that's a good assumption. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what his motivation was, but yeah, I would think that would be chivalrous on his end if that was the purpose, I suppose. And you don't have any training in the field of psychiatry, right? I do not. So you do not have any opinion about the impact that this long-term solitary confinement would have had on his mental state, do you? No, not based on an education or a degree, no. I don't have any further questions. Miss Diener, no other questions. All right, thank you, Detective. You may step down. Miss Diener, I don't have other witnesses. May we approach Judge? Sure. And we have a sidebar. Emma Spire, member for 8 months. Don't catch a live often because of Australia times. But thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. And I saw Becky Oren. Hi, everyone. Thanks to whomever gifted me yesterday. I think it was Friday, but yeah. Oh, I almost forgot. I have YouTube give allows me to gift 10 free memberships each month. And I gifted 5 a few days ago. Here comes the final 5. So the recipients of the free gifted memberships are Sadie, Mimi, Valu87, Southern Mom, and Janine J. Yay! So now you guys, along with everybody else who recently got gifted memberships, you now have access to all my members-only content. You have access to your own emojis on YouTube. And yeah. And I have to put up a fresh link to my Discord as well, because that is also a members-only perk. And hello to Slidey Pie over Rumble. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, let's continue with the sidebar here. Mr. Rossi, you may be able to tell us this anyway, but would it be okay if we just break and just kind of finish our summaries in the morning? Yeah. It'll probably be more condensed and a little bit more clear, frankly. I would certainly hope so. Yeah, I almost can't breathe right now. My allergies are, getting the best of me. Yeah. And then the court says, then we can talk about, he made a statement in June of 2023 that is documented in Dr. Wallace's report, where he talks about if he as his attorneys aren't listening to him, to what he wanted to do, he just wants to plead guilty. I need to inquire about that. No, you don't. Why are you doing this without the prosecution bringing it up, Judge Gull? Why are you bringing this up? Because we all have an ethical obligation that if he wants to plead guilty, he can. I don't know if the state made an offer. Doesn't matter if the state made an offer. Obviously, Mr. McLeland, no offer's been made. The court, so no offer's been made, but we need to resolve that because that's been brought up in this particular statement, and that concerns me if he's, Mr. Rossi, accusing you in some fashion that you won't let him do what he wants to do. We need to put that. Mr. Rossi, we probably should do that at a closed hearing. I would like to do it. I should say I'd like to. Ms. Diener, I can tell you that there's another reference that is related and an inaudible. Inaudible, 43 inaudibles. And we are at volume 6 out of 21. 43 inaudibles. The court, I don't have that record, and I obviously haven't looked at any of the information that you guys have submitted here in your exhibits. I mean, these are all the actual reports. This is the summary. Let's call it a day. Thank you. Sidebar concluded. The court, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's late. It's 6:30. I appreciate the advocacy of counsel. We're going to go ahead and call it a day, and then tomorrow morning, before we begin, I believe that we've now resolved the motion to suppress, as well as the motion for admissibility. Mr. Rossi agreed. The court, Mr. Rossi, thank you. The court, then we can offer final comments and summation about those particular matters tomorrow morning before we begin on the state's motion in limine and the defendant's response to the state's motion in limine. Fair? Yes, Judge. Fair. Thank you. See everybody. We'll convene at 9. Thank you, Your Honor. All right. Thank you, Yodi. You can go off the record. Off record, 6:32 p.m. Let me just check how long final statements are. That is quite long. That is very long. That is 22 pages with just the defense final statements. No, Rick saying is innocent doesn't matter, and you have it in the Miranda rights. Everything you say can and will be used against you. Not everything you say can and will against you, for and against you. Because the prosecution and the courts and the rules say the prosecution only have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to disclose things to the defense. But when it comes to actual trial and hearings and stuff, they don't have to bring up that he proclaimed his innocence before and after. That's on the defense. And the only way the defense can do that is by calling Rick to the stand. That's the rules. In most states, I believe, if not all states, that investigators can say, he said that. But defense can't say, but didn't he also say this? Because that would be self-serving testimony. When self-serving testimony is only allowed when the prosecution brings it. All right, let's see here. Okay, so the closing things are close to 40 pages. That's a bit too much to do today. So we will reconvene either later this next week or next Saturday with more of the Delphi trial transcripts. Slowly says, read it, don't leave me. Judy says, where are the videos and recordings? Well, extremely limited amount of those have been revealed. Because the state does not want the public to see Rick Allen running headfirst into walls. They don't want to see him see the public to see him covering himself in feces and eating feces. They don't want to see the Haldol poisoning where his eyes are literally bulging out of his head. They don't want that. We will never see it. I would assume it's horrifying, but welcome to Indiana justice system. Anything that speaks against them, they will hide it from the defense if they can, and they will definitely hide it from the public, and they do it with Satan's whore, Judge Gull, with her blessing. We can only hope that the appeal is successful, that the appeals court strike down hard on the safekeeping order, on his situation in prison, on the prosecution hiding stuff from the defense, strike down on Judge Gull for her rulings at trial. We can hope. They should. But what they should do is not a guarantee that they will do. We already know that the state police are rewarding the involved cops in this, calling them heroes and everything, because thin blue line, protecting themselves. Protecting themselves. Yeah, folks, I know this is not the most positive subject. It's not fun to read all of this. It takes a toll on me, it takes a toll on everybody, but it needs to be done. And as always, I ask of you, like it, subscribe if you haven't, share it on your social media if you can. Look at other people talking about the Delphi case, like and subscribe to them as well. If you find somebody doing really, really bad content about Rick Allen, comment under their video. Make it known that this is a travesty of justice. Rick Allen deserves to be home with his family. Sadly, again, with all what's going on in Indiana and the cops and Judge Gull, Abby and Libby will never get justice. It won't happen. I can say that with certainty because they invested too much in this trial. So even if, and I mean, they have other confessions with actual details from the crime scene only a killer would know, and they don't care. They went with Rick. But that's all I had for you for today. Thank you all. And yeah, thank you so much. I will, again, as per usual, send you off with a free Rick song. Have a good one. I will see you in the next stream or video. Bye-bye.
Down in the shadows where the courthouse stands, a gavel cracks a fading hand. Judge Gull, they whisper with a crooked grin, played the game where justice don't win. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Prosecutor Mickelin with his papers tied wrote the tale that never saw light. Twisted words in a room of stone left Rick Allen to stand alone. Who will answer? Who will pay? The sun don't rise on a judgment day. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Officer Holman, eyes like frost, drunk on power, the line got lost. Lock the doors, keep him inside, for justice limps where his footsteps stride.